What if like Google became my brain or whatever?
Alphabet, animal, artist, activation.
G'day art adventurers, my name is Christopher and I am continuing with my alphabet animal art adventures today. I'm up to the letter O. There are two viewers that guessed today's letter for ocelot. So congratulations to Queer V Art and Artemystik, I believe is how you pronounce it. They're also YouTubers and art YouTubers, so I'll leave their links down below so you can go check them out and give them some love. And I'm going to be drawing a close-up of an ocelot and then one in the background, doing a little bit of a rainforest scene. And for both this animal and the next animal, I'm using pretty similar materials or media. So alcohol markers, Amsterdam acrylic metallic markers, of course, that's pretty predictable. And I'm doing a background scene for both of them. So it's all pretty obvious to follow, especially if you've been following the earlier letters in this series. These seem to be my default materials for creating a piece relatively quickly, I guess. So instead, today I thought I would share some facts about these animals, starting with the ocelot. The ocelot, also known scientifically as Leopardus pardalis, belongs to the cat family, of course. It's a native to South and Central America predominantly, but it's also found in Mexico, and it even used to be somewhat common in southwestern United States, particularly Arizona and Texas. But this is quite rare in modern times because of habitat destruction, urban sprawl, and just too many people. Its fur is characterized by solid black markings on background fur that actually varies quite a bit, from cream to yellowish to tawny, all the way to grayish sort of color or reddish gray. They possess small spots on their head and on their limbs, and then stripes on their backs and then cheeks and the flanks of the cat. And the very backs will have some very predominant stripes all the way down from the neck to the tail. Their eyes are always brown, but they uniquely, or not so uniquely, like many cats, they transform under light, shining back and reflecting a very golden bright sort of coloration. And they're about twice the size of a typical house cat. I'm talking like I'm some sort of expert on ocelots, but I don't think I've ever seen one, maybe in a zoo. So I'm definitely not an expert. I've just done some research online. Like all cats, they're carnivores. They often hunt by smell initially and then track their prey. Usually that prey is going to be less than a kilogram, and it'll consist of things like armadillos, opossums, rabbits, birds, fish, insects, and reptiles. If they catch a bird, they're known for plucking out the feathers before they begin to eat. And some of the Brazilian ocelots will even feed on primates. Unlike the typical sort of image of a cat, they don't roar or meow. Instead, they're known to make a sort of chuckling sound, especially if they get excited. But if they're approaching the time of mating, it'll switch to a yowl. And they even will communicate to each other in a sort of low muttering sound. They mate at almost any time of the year, but it depends on where they're found because it's such a huge range from the bottom of Brazil all the way up to the bottom of Texas. And so it'll depend on climatic conditions. But technically they can mate all year round, and the female will give birth to 1 to 3 kittens at a time. They only live 2 to 10 years in the wild and up to 20 years in captivity. Ocelots also have a strong connection to the artistic world via the great Salvador Dali, perhaps the world's greatest known surrealist painter. He obtained an ocelot named Babu in the 1960s, and Babu frequently traveled everywhere during that time with Dali for that period, even going out to restaurants with him on a leash that was connected to a jewel-studded collar. There are actually also a number of really iconic photographs of the two together, and so I'll put one up for you to check out. And so I'm finishing off this piece by just putting in the last line work and the black inks and the dark stripes, and then that's pretty much it for this little ocelot forest scene. And this was a fun one to do. I don't feel like I did a great job on the full body cat up the top. Kept making his snout way too long and it's still too pronounced. It should be far flatter. I think the one in the foreground came out a lot better, and I definitely spent a few more minutes on the close-up face profile. So, you know, putting in that extra time shows, but the top one is a bit too rough. And then we move on to the letter P. P for pademelon, another Aussie, good old Aussie animal. And pademelons, if you haven't heard of them before, are macropods like kangaroos and wallabies and the narbalek that I did earlier, quokkas even. So let's share a little bit about the pademelon. Pademelons are marsupials, which are located in Australia, like I said, but also Papua New Guinea, although they're being hunted to the brink of extinction there. And they move around by hopping like the other macropods. They often are confused with wallabies, if you've seen wallabies before, but pademelons are actually much shorter, they're smaller, and they're more stout or thicker, and their tails have far less fur on them. The body fur for pademelons consists of a varying array of greys and browns and reds and blacks, all mixed in together. But to our eyes, that will mean overall it tends to be a sort of brownish grey impression. One species of pademelon, the redneck pademelons, are found in subtropical rainforests near where I grew up on the east coast of Australia. The reference photo that I'm actually using is of a pademelon from Leamington National Park, which is really close to my hometown, a place called Murwillumbah. And sadly, though, these populations have reduced drastically in recent years because of habitat loss and urban sprawl. But the red-bellied pademelons, which are also known as the Tasmanian pademelon, are still really common throughout Tasmania. In fact, the populations in Tasmania are still often culled to keep their numbers down. Another reason why people don't often see them where I'm from is because pademelons rest during the day and forage at night. They typically feed on leaves, grasses, shoots and berries, kind of typical sorts of things you might expect something like a kangaroo or a wallaby to feed on. Their nocturnal lifestyle and the fact that they dwell within the rainforests, combined with the fact that they're very shy, means that I've actually never seen one in the wild except for one or two as roadkill, unfortunately. Thankfully, I've never hit one in a car, although like many Australians, when driving, I've come close to hitting one of their kangaroo cousins, and that can be as dangerous or deadly as hitting a full-grown deer. And if a pademelon senses danger, such as a predator, it has the unique trait of sometimes thumping its hind legs really strongly down on the ground in an attempt to warn other animals of danger, or it might be also a reflex to scare off that predator. Snakes might get intimidated by it, for example, and then slither away. And unfortunately, they have a quite short lifespan of only 4 to 8 years. You might have also noticed for these drawings, and I think the last couple as well, I'm trying a pretty monochromatic approach. So the ocelot was very much greens with the metallic golds, of course, and the pademelon was mostly yellows. And I'm going to be exploring that for the next couple of animals as well. So stay tuned. Don't forget to give me a like, a thumbs up, and take a guess down below for what you think I'll be drawing for the letters Q, is that P, Q and R. I'm up to the letters Q and R. One of them I think is pretty easy to guess, so I'll give you that hint. And I'll see you guys soon for another art adventure. Bye.